Good morning. I'm Chaplain John Rollison with the Dobbins Reserve Base Chapel, and thank you so much for joining us for Lesson 3 of our study on the Sermon on the Mount. Today we're going to be looking at the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5, verse 6. We're still in the Beatitudes, and in chapter 5, verse 6, we read, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." A.W. Tozer once noted that the great people of Christianity have had an insatiable hunger for God. And the great missionary Hudson Taylor, one of my personal favorites, he wrote, "I saw him, and I sought him, and I had him, and I wanted him." Hudson Taylor was hungry for God. And that's a characteristic of those who walk with God and experience the joy of knowing him. In Psalm 27, verse 4, David describes his relationship with God by saying, "One thing I have desired of the Lord, that I will seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord forever, all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple." The desire to know God was at the center of King David's life. The sons of Korah reveal a similar theme in the 42nd Psalm, verse 1. "As the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants for you, O God." And in Psalm 63, verses 1 and 2, we can read, "O God, you are my God. Early I will seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So I have looked for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory." And the psalmist had a deep hunger for God. All throughout Psalm 119, we can find illustrations of that desire. In verse 34 of 119, the author says that he wants God's word in his heart. And verse 40 of 119 speaks of longing after God's truth. And in verse 58, entreats God's favor with his entire being. We read in 145 of Psalm 119, "I cry out with my whole heart." All of these verses reveal a longing to know God. Pastor David Jeremiah, he wrote that if you've ever worked with someone who approached the job in a half-hearted way, you know how frustrating it could be. But half-heartedness was not a part of the psalmist. It was his whole heart when it came to knowing God, the desire to know God, and to give everything towards seeking him. That is the essence of spiritual hunger. All of the great men and women of God had it. Moses, Elijah, David, John, they all had a hunger for God. Our church fathers, Luther, St. Francis, Thomas à Kempis, they thirsted after the Lord. They sought the Lord and weren't satisfied by anything other than a close walk with him. Reformers and church fathers, I should have said. Thank you for joining us for this study. I pray this brought you hope and encouragement. And I'll just say, how can we know God better? We study his word and go to him in prayer. Until next time, I'm Chaplain John Rollison with the Dobbins Reserve Base Chapel.